is the president, and they all move. So let us look at it critically. I spoke with a friend that stays in Ajegule because I really wanted to know what is happening. I told him, how are you people observing the lockdown? He said, lockdown is only if you want to go on the federal roads that you see army and police locking down. But within Ajegule and within all its environs, people are moving on normally. And why do you think people will move on normally? They were not properly educated, not properly informed. What is the National Orientation Agency doing? And then it still comes down to the main problem Nigeria has, thinking that you can stay in Abuja and control what is happening in people's villages. It's wrong. You see, when you allow the local communities to function, we allow the local government and all its agencies to function, you do not need a federal government to enforce lockdown. You would allow the local communities, local government, the councillors and agencies to enforce lockdown within their locality. Now tell me, if the federal government wants to enforce lockdown in Nigeria, how many police do we have? What is the strength of our army? Merge them together with all the national, just think of all the paramilitary agencies, put them together. Are they up to 1 million? Now, consider each of the streets in Nigeria. How many personnel you would deploy to enforce a lockdown? Even in the UK and civilized countries where there's high level of education, people still flout lockdown. I watched the UK where people still go to the park, and the UK police told them this is a lockdown, not a holiday. Just and so that level of engagement has to happen. Just like Maze has correctly said, there's a strategy component and there's an implementation of the strategy component. Our problem is both. We don't even have strategy. Now let me ask you, what would you consider to be government strategy for COVID-19? Is there any published strategy to say this is how we are approaching or tackling COVID-19?
How can they have a strategy for something they haven't even understood?
That is the problem. So we have a, see, I'm trying as much as possible not to be seen as just blaming government, but at the root of this is leadership. At the root of this is leadership. Leadership that understands what it takes to execute a particular direction. The current set of leaders we have is that they have been going away with the feeling of nothing will happen. But you see this COVID-19, the only savior which I'm looking forward to is that maybe let there be a vaccine before it gets out of hand in Nigeria. But had it been this COVID-19 started first in Africa or started first in Nigeria before it gets into the other world, we would have been telling a different story. One thing is certain, nobody gives a damn. Rather, they are more concerned about the billions that are being donated, the billions that are coming from different places, including EU money, UK, US, and how they are going to expend it among themselves. What my expectations are is this is a time the state governors should show leadership. But how can they show leadership when everything is concentrated at the federal level? This is time for the local government to show leadership. But how can they show leadership when everything is concentrated at the federal level? Okay, see, Lagos State governor made a pronouncement and locked down his state. And then the federal government made another proclamation locking down Lagos State. Which would you take? If Lagos State locks down Lagos State, if Lagos State governor locks down Lagos State for 2 weeks, and the federal decides to lock down Lagos State for 1 week, which supersedes what? So it still boils down to we not being able to say this is the area of delineation. I was watching in CNN how the governors were really engaging Trump to say, look, it is our responsibility to open the economy, it's our responsibility to lock our economy. That delineation has been. So while I am blaming the federal government for not having a federal strategy to combating this, what are the state governors doing? I mean, what exactly are they doing? Apart from the Lagos State governor that, and that's because Lagos is a highly dense community where an infection from one can easily spread. And I'm telling people that when I look at the statistics, because again, I work with statistics, when I look at the statistics and the trend of infection, fatality rates with nations that are comparable to Nigeria, I will tell you that the figures we are having could most likely be multiplied by close to 10,000. So if you say you have just 200, 200 deaths, multiply that 200 cases, multiply that 200 by that in the very, very conservative level. So we have a huge problem on our hand, and I just don't pray it
but
blows out.
yeah, but when you I do see that element of argument. But how do you then explain it if because you looked at the multiplication of the figures? How do you then explain it like in the case of Ecuador? Ecuador wasn't testing like Nigeria, but at least the mortuaries had a different story to tell. Whether you were hiding, whether you were showcasing it, you know, at some point there were no place to put dead bodies. You know, let's equally come back home. Look at the Kano state, for instance. If Kano was hiding COVID-19, by the number of deaths per day, their orifice is being blown wide open in that case. So in the wider Nigerian context, in Lagos, which is the epic center of the whole thing, there is nothing that we can say now in Lagos that, oh, every day 200 people, 300 people are dying in Lagos.
The first question you would ask: do we record death rates in Nigeria? Not even birth. Okay, birth, fine, you go to hospital and then immediately they give birth, you are issued a birth certificate. There's no consolidated data. So when it comes to death, government does not even have a handle on it. Most governments can tell you that, okay, we have a death of 50 today. In Nigeria, 10,000 can die and you won't get any official proclamation or any official information. In fact, even the one we are seeing with our very eyes, where maybe an accident will happen, or during all this Boko Haram issue where they bombed a particular location, and by mere looking at the camera, you can count up to 20. The government will come and tell you that it's not only two died, only three died. So we have had a history of suppression of deaths. It is something that we have had over time. So don't be shocked that this Kanu own, at a point, even the governor said there was nothing until social media started putting out a lot of video of people going on procession and burials, and people started asking questions. So we have a government. When I first started making research into the COVID-19 cases, one of the things I found out was that what I termed government transparency index. Most governments, apart from the very known strong democracies, most governments are not very transparent with what is happening in their country as regards death rate. I saw a video that was shown me by, they said it is in Ecuador, where people were filing and going to cemetery to bury their dead because they have kept those deaths in their places and they were not allowed to come out. I can't verify those videos, but that was the video. So one thing you should know for sure is that the deaths that are recorded are far more than what is being announced officially.
No, but hey, but this is a country that all of us are in and all of us grew up in. There is no way that someone will die, or that we start recording that higher number of death that we don't know. But these are humans. Obviously, this is not a time in this day and age. The government can no longer control what people broadcast. People say, I've lost my aunt, I've lost my mother, I've lost my father, and my niece, and my uncle. But we are not seeing that happening. That's why, equally, the federal government could not equally, or rather, the Kano state government could not stop what was happening in Kano.
Mazes, okay. You said we are not seeing that happening. That's one thing. What about UK where we live? Do we see people dying? But every day,
at least we hear.
I'm coming. After 2 o'clock, we hear the announcements. Oh, 700 people have died today.
Many of them die in the hospital. Many of them die in the hospital.
But if they don't do that, will you know?
Of course. At least.
So in Nigeria, they're not doing that either. So we don't know.
Well, no. It's different. We know because in the UK, I know a couple of people. I know colleagues that, you can speak to them. They say, oh, I've lost an aunt on COVID. I've lost my partner on COVID. There is this something, Actually, the way I view it this way, it appears actually COVID made people not to die again in Nigeria.
No. Listen, the problem in Nigeria is that there's a stigma attached to COVID. Even people that are sick, they don't go to the hospital to get tested in Nigeria. People that travel abroad and come back to Nigeria, they don't go to the hospital when they're sick. They will hide, their relatives will hide them. We've had cases whereby they took some people to the hospital and then some doctors got exposed and got infected. So there's stigma attached that when people die in Nigeria, people will not even mention COVID. So they will suppress that, just like Marcel said in the first place. It was as if he listened to me when I was talking about implementation and lack of transparency in Nigeria. So that is the problem. Are people are dying in Nigeria? Yes. Even personally, I believe that this coronavirus has even entered Nigeria before we knew it, even as early as December. So people are dying. Yes, COVID is there, but then there's no transparency. And then you say, no, we will have known it. That's the assumption in Nigeria, the superstition that if something bad is happening, everybody will know it. And then before we know it even, things deteriorate to an unacceptable level.
My argument is anchored on the information dissemination vis-a-vis what happened in Kano. Kano was hiding it. In my analogy, COVID-19 is like pregnancy. You can deny it, just give it time.
In Kano, you mentioned, has it been established that COVID is the actual cause of all those several deaths in Kano?
Well, whatever was the cause, but at least we saw a higher number of people died. So it's now, again, you've been given verbal autopsy. Verbal autopsy in Nigeria, someone says, oh, they died of heart attack. How do you know? Verbally, they've told you. It's just to tell you that's a banana republic. If not, the person who made that silly comment should resign. Verbal autopsy, and you want people to believe.
Maz, there's one thing you need to understand within the Nigerian context. I usually tell people that there is an official position and there's a true position. With Can you hear me?
Yes, now.
Okay. Now, most often, 80% of what you hear as official position are not true position. As in just now, if you look at the case of Kano, if you read through the what is happening, the mortuary attendant said, we have witnessed more burials and more deaths than we usually witness within this period. That was the statement. So there have been deaths over time that nobody knows. But it's just that in this situation, it is unusual. It becomes higher. And that is where investigation comes in. And let me also tell you, the deaths in Kano involved a little bit of the high and mighty. If it were still the local poor people, they would still suppress it. The president was busy giving statements, commensurating. Do you understand? That was it. But had it been those deaths were like the Al-Majiri and all that, they would just bury them and move on. Nobody does any procession. And one thing you should also understand, especially within the northern region, is that they don't do elaborate burial ceremony. If somebody dies in the morning, before 12 noon, he has to be buried. So that also takes away the eyes that was there. Now let's come down even to the south. Nobody goes out to come to the social media or anywhere to announce the death of his relative or else, or only if the person is a known person. Do you understand? And again, one thing you should also know, which I have always been propagating, is the way the COVID-19 works. The reason why you are seeing a lot of deaths in Italy, in UK and other places is simply because they have a fairly high percentage of the elderly. Okay, most people in Nigeria would contract this thing and probably see it as a normal malaria or anything and get and get over it. So you might not expect as much fatality rates as is happening. I mean, this is not for me to discount the fact that it might not happen. But again, most of our elderly are in the villages. Okay,
Already in
um,
isolation.
in isolation, and then when they die, they will probably say they died of old age. Nobody could go and say, look, what exactly has killed these people. So you need to understand that trend. There was a time we were having a discussion on the 100-year life, the longevity. The Western world are looking towards to a 100-year life. The average life expectancy in the Western world is by far higher than the average life expectancy in down in Africa. So one of the things that might conceal this thing, again, the rate of infection fatality is different. But like I said, one of the things that might conceal it might be the fact that we have a fairly young, youthful population that will contract this thing and probably, you know, get
Even
over it.
even before now. I mean, I'm not digressing, but even before now, I was discussing with a friend who's a pharmacist. He has issues with the number of deaths in the Western world. And he pushed me into looking at something. If you take UK, for instance, on a normal year, without any outbreak, you have about more than 1,500 people die every day, every single day. More than 1,000 people die every single day. His argument thereof is, if more than 1,000 people die every single day, now let's assume someone contracted COVID-19 and at the same time had heart attack. So on a if without COVID, that person would have been registered that he died of heart attack, but because he died of heart attack and has COVID, heart attack is ignored, is COVID. He will be amongst the number. So equally, the numbers that is being mumbled and thrown up all the time, it could as well be argued that it's not the actual fact. After all, every year in the UK, for instance, a lot of people die of flu. But suddenly, if any flu-like thing is now being classified different.
Maz, you are talking about a country that keeps records of deaths. So the best way to actually look at this is to look at historical deaths within UK within this time. Okay,
Exactly.
so if you go back and look at what are the rates of death, fatality rates around this period,
It's
then you can begin to
it's
see
almost the same.
it can
No, it's not the
I
same.
I
It's not the same.
I do
Almost the
not
same
believe. I do not
myself.
believe. But again, I wouldn't say until I lay my hands on the data. Just about, but what you mentioned was quite right. So I might probably need to go back and look at the data. But one thing is certain. Remember that even in the UK, at a point they began to reverse their death and their death rate and say, look, there is a lot of people that died in care homes
Yeah,
that were not
well
factored in.
taken care of.
Do you understand? And that came in. Now, UK health system has advanced to a point where they can actually be able to tell the cause of death. I mean, if you ask me, I do not believe any government would enjoy inflating death rates. I do not know the
Not
rationale
the
for that.
inflation, but the reporting
The the
pattern.
the the
Anyway,
reporting pattern.
the
I
reporting
for
pattern. That's by the way. So at the end of the day, I think we'll be rounding up soon. The point remains that we are looking at the easing of the lockdown. Are we able to manage this lockdown? So we've had several views. Some say, well, we shouldn't have lockdown in the first place. I argued that yes, the lockdown was necessary to inflict the necessary shock in our psyche in order to accept that this is something tragic on the horizon. Hey, but I
Yes.
think Dan, you have something to say.
Yes. Before we, after all, the essence of this discussion is to have um, the policy makers look again at their policies and the decision makers look again at their decisions to make sure that the way it impacts on the people on the street is not so bad, especially at this time. So what I would like to do is to point out some commonsensical procedures that the decision makers have to take into consideration when they're deciding to lift the lockdown on Monday. Here are some questions we would like them to answer. Has the federal government and owners of private properties, housing businesses disinfected their offices and premises as provided in the guideline? Is there a special rearrangement of physical working environment to confirm when the golden rule of social distance, golden rule of social distancing is being observed? Have workers in public and private sectors been tested and the status of the infection rates known now as they leave the lockdown? Have public spaces like gardens, walkways, and bus terminuses been disinfected? Have public spaces been equipped with sanitizers and other disinfectants for users? Have public spaces been rearranged to comply with the social distancing directive of the World Health Organization and the NCDC? Has the reality of most Abuja workers who live in parts of Kaduna, Niger State, Nasarawa, has it been properly addressed? So what is the reality that workers living in those states, those who are living under partial lockdown circumstances, have their circumstances been considered? Were surges in close countries around us been taken into consideration before decision to lift the lockdown is made? So we pray that decision makers will have to take these things into consideration, because I think people are asking, this decision, is it based on empirical evidence or simply because of political and economic consideration to lift the lockdown?
Well, I think your point is noted. It is nothing else, in my view, other than economic considerations. Our oil, we are about drinking them. Everyone will make your cup very ready to drink as much as you can. And the economy is in total collapse. Now, without any form of
economic activity going on.
Without any form of economic activity, it is going to be negative. I mean, if there is anything mathematically, you can say minus. That's, double negative. That's what is going to go into.
And me personally, I think it's also a matter of survival, for survivability for the government. When you have hungry people, angry people, restless people staying, they can erupt and then there will be a problem. So government is afraid.
Now,
my question is, if this decision to lift the lockdown is only based on economic and political consideration to avoid people getting angry and then to keep our economy going, what is the end plan? How do they intend to deal with the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic that is about to follow? It is alarming that maybe they'll be hoping on herd immunity. And if they hope that maybe out of 1 million Nigerians, 800,000 die, or maybe they say only 100,000 will die, by then we develop our herd immunity to confront the issue. At the end of the day, what is the empirical data they are working on? It is alarming. If it's only because of economic and political consideration, what is the end game?
You see, I am one of those that advocated for what I would term a managed lockdown. And when I say managed lockdown, for you to effect a managed lockdown, you need to understand the indices. Now, why do you think people will be angry for being locked down? Their means of livelihood has been taken away from them. The government is not providing the necessary support. They are hungry. Compare this to a situation in the US and other places where you have agencies that drop food at your doorstep. They arrange food and drop food at your doorstep. You even have I've seen videos in the US. I think maybe it's NGOs that are doing this. I don't know.
Okay.
But somehow there is some level of provision that is being made for citizens that their means of livelihood has been disrupted. Now, let me tell you, again, remember I was making a case for statistical cost of life. We have to make a decision at a point between debt and economy. And what would happen at the end of the day is the Nigerian government decision to ease lockdown was purely based on pressure, because when I listened to that speech, it said farmers can go back to farming. Okay, so maybe there was serious pressure. Farmers were not allowed to move. But then one of our biggest undoing is we have a central structure that do not allow the individual units to function, and this is where the camel back will be broken. Because had it been our respective units are working, the federal government doesn't have any rule to tell me that the local government should lock down a particular local government. The local government would have taken responsibility
Now,
and
can I stop you?
do their testing.
Could it equally be, you said that the local units are not working, or that the local units have gone on holidays because they've never worked and they're not even interested in working because no one is actually preventing them from working?
Mazi, both of us were in this country when a bill came to the National Assembly for local government autonomy. It was voted down. Do you understand? So I will tell you that the federal and the state have simply not allowed the local government system to work. Okay, maybe we graduate it. The federal has not allowed the state to work. The state has not allowed the federal system to work. So let me create you a hypothetical case. Let's assume the local government is working. You are a local government chairman. Chigbo is a local government chairman. Elomba is a local government chairman. Joseph is a local government chairman. And with the level of knowledge and skill set we have, wouldn't we have been able to manage this better within our local governments if the local government system had been allowed to function? Because again, you are looking at passing information and education straight to the grassroots. We are suffering it. So if one person can think he will stay in Abuja and issue instruction, they will tell him, come and enforce it. Let's see.
I do understand all you've said, but the mindset of the people who are in the grassroots and who do not understand. We've seen videos of aged mother in Bayelsa, in somewhere in Niger Delta, who said that drinking akpatashi kills the coronavirus, and that's what she believes in. Now, in that case, how do you convince a woman who has made up her mind from all that she has read, some from WhatsApp messages, that when you do this, you don't contract it, or when you do this, it goes away? So,
Mazi, they simply did not.
On a multi-level, so is the solution.
They simply did not believe the government. You see, when you have lost integrity, when you have told so many lies several times, even when you are telling the truth, nobody will believe you.
Yeah, but how did that? I like that point, but how did that point now? How did it work under Ebola? Suddenly,
Ebola is different from COVID.
what makes it different?
The Ebola, the way, remember Ebola started from Sierra Leone or somewhere, and then moved to Nigeria, and then the way Ebola spreads is entirely different from the way the COVID-19.
No, but people
spreads.
obeyed. People obeyed instructions. People,
Who was there? Was there a lockdown for you to evaluate whether people obeyed or not?
No, there wasn't lockdown. That's the thing. Lessons learned. Lessons learned. There are similarities where this is a pandemic. This is a catastrophe waiting to happen now, and people are in the time of Ebola. People were willing. You can see people greeting someone. He just sticks his hands in his pocket. But here we are.
Okay.
People barely. You see police going into churches, led by men who ought to know, but they are there still holding their church services.
It simply means that they've lost respect and credibility for the government. Again, you are as good. Your advice is as good as who is giving it.
You see, that's the thing. There's Chibo mentioned before in Yiddish example. Now, the point you're trying to bring in defeats the argument, because what they've done in Sweden is they haven't forced you to. They have advised you and say, observe social distance. Now, the individuals have done so themselves, which in our case, we now have these challenges that even when you do a partial lockdown, you're probably still struggling and you're not getting there. Gentlemen, it has been a wonderful evening, and I must thank you all for joining. This conversation, we could have this conversation endless, and I'll give you your parting, 1 minute each for your parting words. Chibo, so what is your final word on this?
My final word is addressed to Nigerians, and of course, Nigerians that are in diaspora. This calls for sober reflection, what is happening now, and nobody's immune. And to defeat coronavirus, all hands have to be on deck. I know the Nigerian government doesn't have so much credibility that, when they say something, unlike Ebola, when Professor Chukwu was in charge, giving out information. Now we don't even know who is in charge. Is it Lai Mohammed or is it NCDC? So now we are all interconnected. Everybody has to take care. Everybody has to keep to social distancing, wash your hands regularly, and then wait for, of course, we'll come over it. We'll rise over it. We shall overcome. It's a matter of time.
Okay, thank you very much. Daniel Elomba, your final word.
One thing I would like the federal government to do immediately is to disband this presidential task force. You can't have a presidential task force where you have 7 ministers in a task force. What are they doing there? So dissolve the presidential task force, appoint the vice president of the federation to head the presidential task force, appoint NCDC chairman or president or any title he has to deputize for the chairman of the task force, and appoint professionals into the task force. Then every instruction coming with regards to this thing must either come from the vice president or from the NCDC. And then have a video conference with all the 36 governors so that all of them will be on the same page. You can't have the federal government announcing the lifting of the lockdown and the Lagos State government giving a counter command. Anambra State government says everybody should go to market, that there is no COVID-19 in Anambra State. It cannot work.
Thank you very much. Marcel, your final word.
Okay, for me, I would just appeal to Nigerians that they should stay safe and keep safe, because I've seen this happen. Quite a lot of my friends that have gone through this, I know the experiences, so it is better. Let them take personal responsibility for their own lives. Realize that it is their life, not the life of anyone else, and keep to the norm. Social distance, wash your hands, don't put your hands in your mouth, don't put your hand in your nose, don't put your hand in your eyes. In terms of the federal government, I would want to ask the state government to step up and take ownership of things within their states and make things happen.
Thank you. So, Joe, in as much as you joined us very late, but you've been part of the discussion, you heard what we said so far. Yeah. So what's your take before we close with your own remarks?
Okay, thanks so much, Mazi. It's unfortunately I joined quite late, but the whole exercise has to do with the people. The people have to own the process. Government may have failed on their responsibilities, but at the end of the day, people are either the winners or they will be the losers. So whatever it is, we must own the process. The social distancing, wearing a face mask, we must do all that we need to do as individuals to win this pandemic. If we fail, we will lose a great deal. We cannot afford to fail. Whether government is failing or they're not failing, we as individuals, as people, should own the process and fight this successfully. That's my advice to Nigerians.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. And you viewers out there, this is just the beginning. We will have, this is a conversation that will continue. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock, join us on these platforms, Facebook, on YouTube, and also if you're able to get the link, join us. Tomorrow, our guest is going to be Professor Chukwuma Soludo, the former CBN governor. Join us, that's going to be an interesting discussion. Okay. Once more, everyone, thank you very much for joining. Get ready for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.